Welcome to the third bonus episode of the Process Automation Podcast from ABB. I'm Fran Scott, and in these bonus episodes, we welcome back a previous guest of the podcast to interrogate them that little bit further. In our last episode, we explored the topic of future-proofing metals. Today, we're joined once again by Frederik Esterhuizen, who is the Global Business Line Manager for Metals at ABB Process Industries. And we're going to discuss his career in the metal industry. Together, we'll look at what the past can teach us and how these lessons might help shape the future. Fred, I am very much looking forward to chatting to you in more detail because you've been at ABB for 30 years. Could you tell us about the different roles that you've had that have led you to working in the metals industry?
Yes, correct. It's my 30th year with ABB, so part of the furniture to an extent. I think to start off my career before ABB, I actually worked 3.5 years in the metals industry in South Africa. And then in 1996, I actually joined ABB, or 95, I actually joined ABB in South Africa. And there I had various roles. I started in the training department, training our customers on how to use our equipment. And then about 3 years into that journey, our LBL manager, local division of local business line manager's assistant, came to knock on my door and said, he wants to see you. And the first thing I thought, I must have done something wrong, because why? I mean, he's there, I'm a little trainer here at the bottom, so why would he want to talk to me? And effectively, I walked into his office and he said, Fred, here's the phone your wife and tell her you're moving tomorrow to a new site 400 kilometers away. Yeah, interesting phone call. Fortunately, I have a very supportive wife and she agreed on the change, so I then transferred to that project. Long story short, moved then in 2006 to ABB Switzerland, where I did project management. I was market segment manager and now recently the global business line manager for metals. So a long journey, lots of different roles. And I think that's very enriching in ABB that we have that possibility to be able to shift between different places and different roles.
Absolutely. And then you can bring the wealth of experience that you've got from all of those roles to what it is that you do now. And I am sure that over those 30 years, you have seen things change. And so what are some of the biggest challenges that the metal industry faces now that perhaps it didn't 30 years ago?
If you look at it, I had one of my R&D manager actually retired end of last year after 37 years in the industry. And also when you typically go and meet with customers, there's quite a lot of them which would have between 20 and 30 or 40 years of experience in the industry. So really getting the young people or the young generation to move into the metals industry is one of the key challenges. And that's why we also need to adapt the way we do metals and also what we can do with digitalization and so forth to make it more attractive for the younger generation as well. So really the biggest challenge is the resources of a knowledge pool are getting smaller and smaller because of the changes in the generations of not staying so long in one place or one industry anymore.
And how have you seen the industry change over your time in it?
Very different. Still very traditional because you can still make steel in one specific or typically in one type of way. But they have really taken up the new challenges of the reducing CO2 emissions, actively looking at doing things differently on keeping the environment in a better condition, looking at how can the processes be optimized, how can we bring AI or digital into the existing processes and still make it cost effective and efficient, because steel industry has for a long time been in an oversupply situation. So if you look at the Northern carbon steel, which are going into infrastructure and so forth, there's a lot of them around and there's a big oversupply of that. And that's also where you then get the challenges with steel dumping and tariffs and all these things which are going around. But the steel industry are changing to be much more specialized. So a lot of the new greenfield plants are specifically to reduce fossil free, as an example, like the ones going on in Sweden. And other plants are really looking at how can I do more specialized steel? So going into steel, which are more, you need to be more precise in the control, more precise in the quality, more precise in the thickness, so that it really makes a difference and becomes more of a niche product, so that you can still maintain the upstream stuff or the old stuff, if you want to call it, to still stay in business. Hence, we need to be expanding and experimenting. How can we stay in business by bringing in keeping the old, but then also bringing in new specialized steel as an example.
Absolutely. And in terms of, yes, it's changed, but it is changing as well. So when it comes to future-proofing the industry, say for the next 30 years, what sort of things come into your head?
For sure, the electric arc furnace changes. And then also there's a lot of startups around the world right now looking at how can we do heating differently. So instead of using gas, how can we use plasma flames? How can you use other ways of actually heating the process as such so that you can also be more or less the CO2 emissions coming out, but also empowering new technologies to come into the industry. So there's a lot of smaller startups which can scale up over time. Hydrogen was one which was started as a small. There's more improvements already on it, but it's still not 100% ready for a full-scale production in these applications. So a lot of changes, a lot of opportunities, but still a very stable industry which are needed for our everyday and future growth as population in the world grows.
Absolutely. It's an industry that we all use and we all need, whether we know it or not. And yes, there's innovations happening in what is a traditional industry, I suppose. So what would you say to someone who is thinking of starting their career in process automation or within the metal industry specifically?
I would say take the chance. There's really a lot of changes. There's a lot of technological innovations ongoing. So AI really helps us, as an example, how you can then future-proof metals by using experience, by using your standard operating manuals and so forth, to really bring it more in a digital form, which are much more attractive going forward. Also, it's an industry which are needed, and it will not disappear over time. So starting with either metals or with process industries, we've got a lot of interesting things out there, not only metals. If I talk process industries, we have a lot of changes on the mining side, on the hoisting side, on the gearless mill drive side. So really a lot of attractive things and a lot of technological changes continuously evolving in the industry. So a very interesting place. You will not be bored.
Yes, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of these jobs are in areas where you think of them being quite traditional jobs, but how we think of those jobs is not how they actually are. They are constantly innovating and changing. And so what youngsters might think they are is not the reality these days, correct?
That's correct, yes. The industry is really trying to get people out of the dangerous places, really trying to make people one step away from the process so that it's a safe environment to play in and work in. So there's a lot of those things ongoing. So what you might have seen many, many years ago of how dirty and how you need to work there with your hands in all these difficult environments, that's not there anymore. With digital, with robotics, with electrification and automation, we're really stepping away from that dirty environments and the unsafe environments to make it a much more pleasant area to work in. And technology continues to evolve. So you can continually learn, and you can also continually grow into different directions internally or on the customer side, because the whole process are being adapting continuously and improving continuously.
Fred, over your 30 years, what's the change that you've seen that has excited you most?
I think the change that excited me most is that we're really giving people the possibility to move in different places much faster. So it's not that we expect a person to stay in one role for 10 or 15 years. We're really adapting our learning of our people internally to be able to do that. And also on the industry side, the thirst of our customers to really trying to do things different and better. I think that's really the changes which you see, where traditionally you would have spent a lot of time doing the same things forever. Nowadays, they're really trying to adapt, trying to stay ahead of the curve, because they also need to stay in business. So this continuous changing and improvement, which is ongoing, even though it's in smaller steps, that's really what excites me about the whole industry at this stage.
Fred, thank you so much for all of your knowledge and for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. And just one last closing statement from my side, which we from a metals perspective actually live by. So this is how ABB operates. Like the metals, it helps to produce strong yet flexible, firm but forgiving, steadfast and solid but easy to work with. And hopefully that's how we can also attract new talents to our industry.
A huge thank you to our guest, Fred. And if you want to hear more from him, do go and listen to the previous episode of the podcast if you haven't already. And if you want to get involved and join us as an expert, follow the link to ABB's website in the episode description, where you can let us know your domain of expertise. I'm Fran Scott, and the Process Automation Podcast is a Fresh Air production for ABB. Follow now for free wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode.